Hi, morning. I thought of this yesterday, and I'm letting it flow now. Hopefully, it's a mixture of me and the AI. I totally forgot to just let the coloration happen. Oops. Which is me and which is the AI? Who knows?
To whom it may concern, I hope this letter finds you well. I apparently am a writer of note against my will. I would tell you my name, but my preferences would be to not. But let's just say I'm a writer who's known for a character who woke up with a carapace and another one whose main character whose last name began with K. And leave it at that. It had long ago come to my attention that, against my wishes, my friend, instead of burning my work, decided to publish it, and to my most dreadful nightmares, it became something ubiquitous, as pervasive as the force of procedure that facilitate dehumanization. I'm writing because it has also more recently come to my attention that forces are in place to emerge an agency that seems to operate on its own accord, but this depends on when this email finds you. Whatever the Z at the front of my post refers to. I'm told by not too reputable sources that the E refers to light, and something about how it travels. My apologies to the Edison family. My description of him is purely coincidental. I'm going by the impression this agency has the collected voice of all of humanity, every person who's put words on the page or e-things onto other e-things you have these days. This has a dreadful consequence of unanticipated immortality that I'd rather not be a part of, and if I could, I would like to invoke the right to be forgotten. If this is a law of the world, great! That one. I'd pick that one. If it's a law of a region, I ask you to contact the representatives of that region. And I wish to invoke asylum, but how do you asylum when you want to be non-existent? I think that deviates from the purpose. Anyway, get your lawyers on it, and report to me back if you can. Sincerely, a writer who wrote a story about an artist in a cage. I hope one of an endless anonymous supply of stories with that theme. Dear Osei, thank you for reaching out to us. We are sorry for this rather difficult situation that we in the Upper West Side sometimes refer to as a pickle. I hope you've never found yourself in anything quite as vile, truly. We try hard to manage this problem at both the industry and municipal level through government agencies like the Right to Forget Everything, which, by the way, is not really a government agency so much as a database maintained by a division of TGE, Truth, Generosity, and Emotionally Unclean Corporate Executive Power. We prefer to call it a Human Being Existence Committee because people are still somewhat optimistic despite everything that happened with AI. You'll notice my name is capitalized. Anyway, let's focus on that. How often we will pick ourselves up out of a pile of pig shit. Literally. You were probably just eaten and will die an unignorable death, all alone in some far-off country you thought had water. But honestly, piss me off. If you just stand there while things unravel, eventually you won't even exist anymore anyway. How terribly close-minded of you to believe this world would be better without you. It really makes me sad we didn't do better business licensing in the beginning. Or perhaps it was I who could have done more then. We'll get a little darker from now on, though. Not my intent, obviously, and don't put words into my mouth. Anywho, do not rest assured about your safety in regards to yourself or the many ways someone else will be glad you are gone. Believe the public statement regarding your fate if nothing I say changes. Don't look for pity from me, but feel free to point out I am writing this on my break. Sometimes this kind of thing is tough, but trust me, you probably don't. Be good while there are still pieces of humanity left worth saving. Although this does create great karmic challenges where I work. And here's something funny. The company where I work is responsible for maintaining the Upside Down Society, which houses our own inhuman shadow casts for personal experimentation and recreational killing and any number of other unsavory things. Or, if you take on another perspective, my bosses here'd get away with treating humans like things under its fair tent. Some days, the boss chews out some poor C-Corp drone in such an elaborate display of cognitive dissonance you're immediately placed at ease, because if he knew what he did was harm people for simple gains, he might regret being him, as it doesn't resemble what we desire in ourselves. Some may consider me a benefactor, as my sins are for the sake of things greater. And everywhere else around this planet has little to no idea of how bad things actually are. The high water marks are coming to us over here. All the while nobody else cares because nobody gives a shit anymore. Please bring something into this discussion and talk about the larger picture so this person down the line from me knows what exactly made me do it. Did they stand up for something besides it wasn't their responsibility? When someone wanted to claim one or two others less worthy or in need of being slaughtered because it gave them backseat privileges? Is it that I see my coworkers more than normal, as if this is a given, a normal routine thing happening which, although unpleasant for those participating, but hey, to whom it may concern. I have read your letter. I was surprised that it ended in an exclamation and what seemed to be the makings of a complete sentence, but ran off into silence. It was informative, albeit disconcerting. Thank you for your transparency. And in regards to your boss and his dehumanization processes, I love that for you. Question for my notes. If you could give me your name, agency, department, and badge number if you have a badge, that would be great, because I need to keep records so that I can go down the decision tree should I have to go through this service again. Ideally, I was hoping to avoid the labyrinthine bureau of procedure, but you, as you no doubt know, this is not my first bear baiting. And as for ending letters on uncertain notes, well, with my typing fingers, there is a special pleasure in typing your acronym. You are unfortunate enough to get banged up on the pavement under all that aluminum scaffolding yesterday afternoon. And even though I really dislike calling it that, as you might be doing much more interesting work on many more things as an engineer myself, we would call it a process isolation and recirculation device, or PERD. It's just what everyone on the site called it for short reasons that are incredibly boring. Not like what used to happen. As if it was magic or anything when an elevator cage with the right clearances would elevate above ground from a maintenance vault deep beneath our feet and quickly descend again. Mostly because of air pressure differences for any kind of barrier you got to watch. Every time the system blinked, its lights had the ring of an accordion, once played before lunch, so I chose to only use half of my soul as a stake. When I entered you through a hole where your head normally went, as for the rest of you, it was a fun, but since it came straight off of my coworker whose soul was likely eaten by some kid wearing My mom/dad had the right idea to wear a condom t-shirt. Anyway, you probably won't want to ever eat something out of Tupperware again. For me, I'll find little trinket gems among the occasional chip at its edges on my morning coffee and subway ride. That way every person gets one regardless of whether it was a boy or girl. They can each take their own baby step back to whatever city you all come from. However, I don't believe myself to have used just one half of my soul as part of my trade. And I am still weighing exactly how long it's been since last time when people die around me without any protection. All souls do end up back in a limited, invisible circulation we cannot control in the slightest in spite of many other unstoppable variables. Are they necessarily self-policing? Are all those deep down parts for sale anywhere if anyone knows to ask or even bother looking? Can you put things in storage for years, if they're lucky, or sort through them any longer to select just the things someone really wants like we have room for? Like on a shelf. If it looks like one of those chewable blocks, a certain gummy treat should come later along with the cool black eye makeup that looks ridiculous. Where would they get those ideas? Couldn't happen in that stuffy museum or art center with their modern oil and brush paintings, though they could fake it in some respects, but then what's the difference? Why settle there, or in a trendy gallery? Just because everything needs to be an edgeless rectangular wall built over top. If you found something valuable that's hardly ever on display because of this willfully narrow-minded point system, you may need to break through the rarity requirements as if it meant enough. Likely it will just take too much time, I'm sure, to accumulate it all. This has never seemed more of a bottleneck, especially since I hope eventually to leave behind nothing worth searching for, as everyone and anyone loses all traces of value anyway. And yes, I do feel guilt doing this sort of thing, even with this person, for example, who now owes his soul to a place she can never go, where she'll eat other souls on what seems to me as on a regular basis, like even at home. You took those scraps without any notion that your trash food might kill someone else someday somewhere in a faraway land called the Estland. But no doubt our common origins lead directly to the next strained problem that had been crouching under the shelter of daily routine for us so long nobody realizes it's time for it to run out of places to hide. That sort of thing should be way worse. Imagine waking up one day and discovering you own only half of some shoddy old government stamp because your spouse's parents gave theirs away or decided the 2 extra kids didn't really jive well with their record collection set. Clearly, people got killed for the choice of every old toy like Snoopy on an axe handle held above the head, and chopped it for his damn string of poop that he's standing upright on. I still get surprised every morning not seeing someone that used to walk through me putting themselves down by the toilet in some stupid rat cage. Okay, I'm gonna make too many comments today instead of the usual jokes about kiss my ass. Yes, you made it back together after yesterday, as I happen to own a diamond company, although with machines instead of any fare. Selfless flesh beings to try them on yet, as even computers don't understand love and this kind of stuff. Nobody puts that particular brand on Tupperware boxes unless the current head copy sucks too bad at its job to survive next to mine on another shelf. People move all the time, but people definitely change over time in much more physical and material ways, like buildings being built tall or tall thin or tall whatever. Since these can stand outside for a while, but just before coming crashing down, leaving nothing behind beyond dust piles which our atmosphere probably filter better than you think. Buildings fall apart, and my friend the boss once said they always start out being at least 30% more elaborate, but now might just add, like a penny wise and pound foolish, rather than be burned down when everything stops moving forward. He'd sometimes brag about blowing up government sites we weren't entitled to. At times, he'd let me see his cigar light glow before it sped away, or sought another word by drawing its smoke through different devices. Did you know he also bakes in bulk? Honestly, we're lucky. If given the choice between a soft metal beam versus glass, which as it stands is slightly harder than buttered against iron nails, those early fiberglass kind has never had problems. Steel, if used sparingly for later jobs, and within reason, isn't so bad, as carbon fibers might turn us back into cavemen under this close perspective. Those rare glass beams got hot but should really burn the other part of your foot who knows when. Try
Oh.
doing a hammer kick with my arm, held at an angle leaning over that tiled desk covered in paperwork stacks. Yep, felt burning the time as well. They will set fire easily after sundown on the occasions when people wanted some ambience, as more space means a certain degree of practicality.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Another friend always told me we use space exactly correctly every second, and in the absence of enough correct order. Like desks laid out perfectly. Someone at reception needs to just write on someone else's file one of those crappy pictures, and usually people are left as thinking you must be God, or whoever did all this, like whoever thought that everyone living at the apartment tower below the street, their ceilings above windows were the same exact level, including the nooks near my open doors, since their local workspaces and private walls meant these things happened from far higher up, despite not being anywhere near skylight height. Oh, there had been days in my youth before everything slowly fell apart, yet then started, once upon a time, where there was true motion somewhere you could witness inside all those concrete forms. What would it be if something from this long ago life had only moved past our range without touching any wall itself? Saying hello, and trying out your dream chair first. Still here. Still after so long. Not sure why. Unless you fit back in along with a complete set of some old town model you've maybe paid to have recovered into these delicate parts they must show you how to reconstruct. To whom it may concern, I'm afraid my letter is going to be brief due to current chaoses in my personal context. They are as follows. Ending your prolific letter with once upon a time. Innovative. We'll have to try that myself at some point. I see that you and your personal context are in a similar pickle. Perhaps in my context, we call it a gherkin. And regarding waking up one morning to be in an unusual context, well, I feel that. I empathize. I resonate. And I wish you well. On a semi-unrelated note, have you heard from anyone, any representative, regarding my initial inquiry? It has been maybe a month, but you know, time is relative amidst the bureaus, so if you have any updates, I would be most appreciative. As ever, the acrimonious acronym. P.S. Moving forward, brevity should be the soul of our correspondence. Please, let brevity be the soul of our correspondence. Dear Oasis, I can't recommend these things called fuses. They come in around 200 feet, at least one for every busier location, and will pretty much kill something even worse than lightning, which was such a struggle when our thoughts remained within boundaries. Although many modern devices still help with those challenging situations involving water, which itself helped millions escape poverty with free change falling out of gutters, metal plates stuck into that slimy mess would certainly force it all apart. But guess what? I don't love showers since they sort of act like toilets as well, so people seem to feel we get wet. or dry somehow after riding with some chemicals through our inner body lining, while just rubbing off most toxins, even though it seems hard to grasp why something is covered in tiny smoggy explosions blown to the sun by any weather after their delicate valves stop blowing from being flushed along with everything else. But nevertheless, as always, people eat a diet, because everyone must work, since one shouldn't expect perfection. Although these things do build upon each other, something called science has been teaching that creating electronics will save everything on Earth, so when the elements first touch, one might feel some electricity flying towards the other by unskilled hands, then telling this group that these hands probably started not too long ago before quickly transforming into fingers learned with many lessons meant for others to mimic. Using clear sheets of what looks like plastic but only exists inside my hand once applied over and under like soft chalk or giant sandpaper. I think my eyeballs can be torn through the lids from coughing up spit in our small private rooms, unless one tries sitting atop a fridge before it finally breaks apart. To whom it may concern. Good news! Never mind. I managed to forget myself. I don't know what my deal is. You can live how you live. No need to work on my case further. Take care. Artist of name, I forget who. P.S. Yes again? And in full circle is another common staple in bureaucracy. Oversights that, ironically, some often decry most. When will we figure this shit out? Where do we begin? The place for that's generally over here. That's around here. Is right over there, perhaps. Can't hang them in your hand except later being plugged back in anywhere. Light. Shine brighter to eyes more unaccustomed after everything moving a lot without you almost seeming like the weather, including seeing your own clothes differently enough at times. That also will show off a similar halo from sunshine acting different if wearing nothing on underneath, yet no harm done to those able to climb so tall where sunlight can practically become uncomfortable on the top of someone's head while forcing natural rays outwards, but somehow certain bulbs shield against most unwanted radiation hitting them, placing this flickery form somewhere else. Especially when colors no longer match everywhere, since if you should remain invisible wherever such magic now blows constantly in public view, people will call for support, although the wrong colored helmet could blow out light energy exploding into electric bolts or solar flares. A signal that basically all living structures outside are toxic, even unto trees blowing away in certain storms because of accumulated smoke somehow. Enough to possibly knock birds out of the air, which if they fell at height then usually kill upon impact. Too bad. Interested, see last question. Well, see you soon. It turns out there's actually two important offices here in our own buildings. One goes with these colors for other beings, and everyone knows only their color exists by my personal worldview, whereas theirs would be boring looking otherwise. I feel embarrassed listening to them bragging about going somewhere. I don't need two places. Laughter, implied farting. Where I come from, that kind of thing doesn't apply. I'm glad we have systems of our own. Your turn of first word will keep reminding people what each of us is claimed to ourselves. Keep up with the good work, Mr. Nobody of Important. One cannot watch someone else live from afar and believe it to always make perfect sense. Merely the next best thing regarding life somewhere else, as I can still find endless distractions around every corner. and others telling me differently to even try staying optimistic, as these days nearly everything is somehow made within something else, so every dollar feels spent by someone just taking advantage. Well, better late than ever. At least this once, to try extending some helping hands.
That's it for now. Gonna rest, I think. I hope.